Welcome back to another episode of The Football Chemist, where we use data to go through football's biggest talking points without boring or confusing you with all of that technical jargon. Today, we're going to dissect all of the transfer drama surrounding Hugo Ekitike. After Newcastle approached Frankfurt for the 23-year-old striker, Liverpool then made a move for Alexander Isak before setting their sights on Ekitike. But why have Liverpool opted for Ekitike over Isak? And where does this all leave Newcastle? Let's get into it. So to start off with, there's been a lot of news out there over the last few days, and it's very easy to get confused in the details. I've had to change the angle of this video a few times as I've been planning it to keep up with the transfer news, and I'm sure it is going to take another twist before I release it. But let's just have a quick overview of how things have panned out over the last few days. So to start off with, Newcastle submitted an official bid of £69 million for Ekitike. And this was quite surprising because they also stated that Alexander Isak was not for sale. So it implied that Eddie Howe was thinking that he could use the two of them in tandem in his team. Later on Tuesday, Liverpool rejected a €67.5 million bid for Luis Diaz. And whilst this might seem unrelated, this is highly linked to Liverpool's pursuit of a striker, as Diaz was the main player who played in that number 9 position for Liverpool last season. Liverpool stated that Diaz was not for sale, but the rumours around him suggested that he was open to a move, with Bayern Munich the strongest linked side, but Barcelona also waiting in the wings. Following this, Liverpool then made an approach to sign Alexander Isak from Newcastle for a fee around £120 million. There's no official bid, but this was what was being talked about between the two clubs. Newcastle stuck by their guns and said that Isak was not for sale, and then Liverpool turned their sights on Ekitike and got in touch with Frankfurt about making a bid. And since that has happened, the race has heated up. Liverpool have advanced personal talks with Ekitike and have recently submitted a bid thought to be around €80 million, whilst Liverpool and Frankfurt negotiate. It appears now that Liverpool are in pole position to sign Ekitike, and since then, Newcastle's interest has cooled, and they have now turned their sights on Yoane Wissa. And as I mentioned before, there's been a lot of news out there about all of the players involved, but nothing concrete has been confirmed yet. So there's still a lot of speculation, but it looks like Liverpool are in prime position to sign Ekitike, and Isak will be staying put at Newcastle. But where does this leave Liverpool then? Who is actually the better striker between Ekitike and Isak? And why are they so desperate to go for Ekitike and made almost a half-hearted bid towards Isak? So you don't need to be a Premier League expert to realise that Alexander Isak is a world-class striker, and he has proven that ever since he arrived at Newcastle from Real Sociedad. He is Premier League proven, and he is a guaranteed source of goals. And it's not only the goals he brings to a team, he's also a very strong passer and a dribbler too. As for his cons though, the big one for Liverpool was the price, but also his injury record is far from spectacular. But to be honest, his goals make up for this, because when we look at his goals per 90 over the last few seasons since he left Dortmund, he's very consistently been up there. If we take a look at this graph here, only once has he gone below 0.5 goals per 90, and whilst his assist returns have been a bit modest, they are on the up, and it's hardly a bad thing when he's scoring as many goals as he is, as shown here. And when we take a look at his style of play, we can see that he is such a well-rounded striker. Only his interceptions are really letting him down here. Everything else is one of the top strikers across Europe's top 5 leagues, and it's especially impressive when you consider that he is getting these stats whilst playing in the Premier League, arguably the most competitive of Europe's top 5 leagues. But, as I mentioned before, he's got a bit of a checkered injury history, and when we take a look at his recent injuries compared side by side with Ekitike, there's no competition really. Isak tends to get a lot of small injuries, but he does get some bigger ones as well. And when we look at most of these injuries here, they tend to be muscular injuries. And whilst he has gotten better, and he didn't miss that much of last season, this will still be a bit of a cause for concern in a team that plays as intensely as Arne Slot's side does, and plays across several competitions, and so will have to be playing 2 to 3 games a week, most weeks. Ekitike, on the other hand, has only had very minor injuries since 2022, and this will be a key reason why a club might want to sign him over Isak. So how good is Ekitike then? I analysed him a bit in a previous video when I was looking at Chelsea's transfer targets, but it looks like their interest in Ekitike has massively cooled off now, so I'll be focusing on him from a Liverpool perspective here. If you want to catch up on some Chelsea transfer news, please check out this video. So when we look at Ekitike's style of play, we can just see he is just quite well-rounded, really. All of his stats here in this polygon are very strong, and the only one that you could say is slightly bad, but still in the 60s, are his progressive passes. He's a nice, well-rounded striker, and he can build on this if he's put in a top team. Frankfurt are a very good team in Germany, but moving to Liverpool or even Newcastle would represent a step up, where he'll be playing Champions League football next year. And he doesn't just provide goals, he also provides assists. And he was one of the Bundesliga's leading creators last season. You can see him here in 5th in this graphic, and the green bar there showing his assists is also pretty significant. So he provides a bit of both, and he can work in an attack where he doesn't necessarily have to be your top goal scorer. And Liverpool, of course, already have a top goal scorer in Mo Salah. He's also one of the best at carrying the ball forward, because when we look at his take-ons versus his carries into the penalty area, we can see he was one of the top players in the Bundesliga last season for this. Look at him all the way up there on this graph. However, his goals minus XG does let him down a little bit, and that's evident when we take a look at this graph here, where we compare him side by side with Isak. He massively underperformed his XG last season, which could suggest that he's got a bit of a finishing issue, and this could be a cause for concern. We know Isak is a top striker, a top finisher. It's a bit more unknown with Ekitike. So that's the two profiles of strikers compared side by side. But what exactly are Liverpool looking for in their number 9? So Liverpool are in the market for a striker. Darwin Núñez looks to be heading on his way out, with Saudi Arabia seeming the most likely destination right now. And Luis Diaz, like I said before, has indicated he wants to leave. However, something worth noting is since the rumours came out about Diaz wanting to leave, he's been a lot more active on Instagram in terms of liking Liverpool's posts, as you can see here. However, Liverpool will still need another player to add to their arsenal of forwards, and Ekitike could be that player. When we look at the number 9 they're looking for, they don't necessarily need an out-and-out goalscorer like Isak, because when we look at how their forwards performed last season, goals were not the issue. Salah had an exemplary goals per 90, and this is hardly a one-off for him. And yes, these numbers were stronger than they normally are, but he still gets the amount of goals you'd expect from your leading striker year on year. And Diaz and Gakpo were also chipping in with the goals as well. When we compare that to Arsenal, Chelsea, and even City, Liverpool are the leading team in the Premier League for this. So Liverpool don't necessarily need goals from their striker. They need someone who more complements their attack and fits into their team, which is already working very well. And that is why Ekitike has that advantage over Isak, because when we look at Luis Diaz's polygon, we can see that he still performs well in the traditional striker stats, but where he performs best is his progressive play and his assisting and providing chances rather than his goals. And with Ekitike's assists compared to Isak, this suggests that he could be a better fit into Liverpool's number 9 position, where he almost drops back a bit, plays into a more false 9 situation and provides assists to players like Salah on the right or Gakpo on the left, rather than a leading number 9 who stays high up the pitch and doesn't really contribute to the build-up play. Because we saw earlier with Isak's polygon, he's not the best at interceptions or defensive play, and this could be an issue for Liverpool. And when you consider this, and adding the fact that Ekitike will cost a lot less than Isak, and Liverpool have already spent a lot of money this transfer window, and probably do need to recruit in centre-back, you can see why the Reds are so interested in Ekitike over Isak. But where does this all leave Newcastle? So unfortunately for Newcastle here, their hands are tied behind their back a bit, and they've got to follow Liverpool's transfer strategy a bit, as it looks like they're being outmuscled for Ekitike, and so have to base their striker pursuits on what Liverpool do. Because if we get the formation graphic up again, we can see what they're looking for in a striker like Ekitike. So as you can see here, I've just got up the graphic I had from the last video where I analysed how Anthony Elanga would fit into Newcastle's side, and I suggested that Eddie Howe might be playing a 3-4-3 formation next season. And if you want to find out more about that, please check out my previous video here. If we take a look at how Ekitike might fit into this, we could see him coming into the 3-4-3, maybe playing as one of the wide forwards. He can replace Gordon, he can replace Elanga, he can even replace Isak and basically just rotate with the three of them. But even without Ekitike, this is a top-class front three. And it'd be great if they can get a system where they can get all 4 of them in there somehow. And so to do this, what we might see Eddie Howe doing is reverting back to 4 at the back that he played so often last season, Livramento comes back in as a traditional fullback. Hall drops back to a traditional fullback. And we can see them keeping a bit of a double pivot in midfield with Guimaraes and Tonali, because as we know, that is a top-class double pivot. And then we get some more traditional wingers, and Ekitike drops in as a number 10, because as we looked at his stats, he can definitely do this. And we saw him do that last season in the first half of the season when he was playing alongside now Man City striker Omar Marmoush. So this is a way that they can get all four of their top players in. But unfortunately, it looks like they won't be able to get Ekitike. So then Newcastle might need to think about bringing in Yoane Wissa, who is a more traditional striker, and it's quite hard to see him fitting in a number 10 position. And therefore, I think if they are to sign Wissa, it'd more just be for cover for Isak. Wouldn't even be to replace Isak, but just rotating them as the season can get very busy, playing him in some Premier League matches just to rest Isak, or even just a bench option. And if they were to bring him in for Isak, you can either see him playing in the system in a number 9, and they might even go back to their more traditional 4-3-3 that we saw oh so often, bring in Joe Linton, or they could even try playing Elanga in the middle and then bring Murphy over here on the right, like this. But this is more just a different scenario that Newcastle can use, and the striker is irrelevant. It could be Isak, it could be Wissa, or they can go back to that 3 at the back formation that I pitched earlier, because if they were to sign Wissa, he would just be a like-for-like replacement for Isak and can't really play anywhere outside of the number 9. But still a very good signing, because Newcastle would need to be able to challenge on multiple fronts next season. They're back in the Champions League. They can't let their league form dip like they did last time they were in the Champions League. So where does this all leave Liverpool and Newcastle? All things considered, I'm not really sure why Liverpool was so interested in Isak. Maybe as a bit of a hoax to muscle Newcastle out of signing Ekitike, but I do just think that the Frankfurt striker is a better fit into their team. And therefore, I think we're going to see this progress where Liverpool end up signing Ekitike because he is just a better fit into Liverpool's system. As for Newcastle, I think Ekitike would have been a better option than Wissa, but like I said, I think their hands are tied, and at least Wissa will cost them a lot less, and so they can invest in other areas of the pitch, because they definitely need to invest in their defence if they want to become a top Premier League side. But what do you think? Do you agree that Ekitike might be better for Liverpool than Isak? Or would you have rather seen the Reds sign a top-class striker like Isak? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and give this video a like if you've liked what you've seen. Also, feel free to subscribe to this channel if you want to see more content like this, and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok to see some more short form and behind the scenes content. I'll see you next time.